What's up, fantasy readers? This video is not for the faint of heart. Today, we're talking 3 underrated dark fantasy series. These are series full of trigger warnings where our authors just want to tell a story. They don't want to fade to black for 1 second. If something is important to their story, they're going to leave it on the page. They're going to try to make us uncomfortable, and wow, they're going to tell some incredible stories. But if you love a dark story like me, these are series that I highly recommend checking them out. We've got 2 trilogies. One I just finished reading that's so massive and epic, it just feels like a 5-book series because that's what the author initially wanted. We've got a nice shorter series, more concise with a single POV that's just super fun to rip through. And every time I look at it, I just want to pick it up again. And then I've got one big epic fantasy for you guys that is one of my all-time favorite series that I finished reading years ago and cannot stop thinking about. So with that, I want to start talking about these series. So make sure you like this video, you subscribe, and leave a comment down below what's your favorite dark fantasy you've ever read. Now, I don't really mind what sort of subgenre the book that you're telling me about fits into. I just want something that just feels dark, feels icky. When you're reading it, it feels kind of slimy. What sort of books give you that feeling? What's your favorite of those books? Let me know down below. And with that, let's talk about these 3 series. Firstly, we've got The 5 Warrior Angels by Brian Lee Durfee. I just finished up reading this one at the start of the month, and you guys told me you wanted to hear more about this series. So here's my chance to sit down and tell you guys about it. The 5 Warrior Angels gets a lot of comparisons to John Gwynne's The Faithful and the Fallen, and plot-wise, I can see why. This story has a medieval setting. We've got some classic world building where John Gwynne has just humans and giants. We have humans, dwarves, we have species like elves, we have species like orcs, but they've kind of got a bit of a vampire ability to them too. Then instead of giant lizards like in The Faithful and the Fallen, we've got some dragons that show up. We've got saber-toothed tigers. We've got horses that drink this sap from a tree and just get absolutely jacked and have red eyes. Then we even have a main character that is addicted to elvish nosebeers. Most of the similarities between The 5 Warrior Angels and The Faithful and the Fallen is in the plot. Both of these series is built around the Chosen One trope, where our author is trying to subvert it a bit. But an even bigger similarity we have is we have 5 legendary weapons that people are trying to bring together for a big prophesized battle, very similar to The Faithful and the Fallen. But that's where our story similarities end. The Faithful and the Fallen is a story of good versus evil, and it consists of some of the best characters in fantasy. The 5 Warrior Angels is just full of morally grey characters, really bad people. Like, yes, we get some really good character journeys, really good character growth, but these are bad people, and I wouldn't put the characters on the same tier that I put the Faithful and the Fallen characters on. The 5 Warrior Angels shines with its writing, its world building, its plot. It's a little bit shaky with the characters, especially in book 1. Some of them just have way too much of a lingering eye when they're looking at the ladies, and some of the ladies blush way too much when they're looking at some not so great guys. That bit was very immature, and that took me out of book 1. That issue was fixed for the rest of the series, however, and the characters do continue to get better from book to book. The writing, though, is very similar to a Kristoff or a Steven Erikson, so it's very good at setting the tone, building the world, being very descriptive, and bringing the world alive. This is a series made for people that just want epic fantasy that has gone super dark and gritty. This is a slimy series with slimy characters, but it's also got some really fun takes on it. So yes, this version on the Chosen One trope is really fun. Also, Brian's look at religion. Brian is someone that grew up Mormon and became atheist in his later years. So he's been in and around religion his whole life, and he wanted to take a look at people that were deeply entrenched in religion. He wanted to take a look at people that were questioning their religion. He wanted to look at people that grew up atheist and maybe got religious. So there's a big religious undertone to this series, which gets you thinking about that. And then there's also some fun things that he tries to look into. Like in a lot of modern fantasy romance series, a trope that a lot of people hate is the small-framed princess that picks up a sword and is instantly a good fighter. He has that happen in this book, and as you might guess, things don't end up too well for her. Then a very competent female warrior comes along the way, and she's like, well, of course things didn't work out for you. I'm one of the best fighters in the world because I work on my craft every single day. You don't just get good at it by being a princess born into some role. No, you get good at it by working at it and working at it. So he says a lot of good points in these books, but they're also just made to be super dark, fun reads. I highly recommend checking out The Five Warrior Angels by Brian Lee Durfee. Just be warned, there's some creepy dudes in book 1 and some blushing girls that just shouldn't be blushing. That all gets fixed in book 2, and that was my only issue with this series, except maybe the last book was a touch too long. But aside of that, incredible series. I highly recommend checking it out. But on to the next series. And this is a series that I read about 7 years ago, at least the first book, and I have not been able to stop thinking about it since. And that's The Demon Cycle by Peter V. Brett. The Painted Man is one of the best book ones of any series I've ever read, and I just need more people to read this book. This series is set in a world where at night, demons rise up out of the ground and cause chaos on humanity. The only thing that humans can do to stay alive whilst these demons are around is to hide behind their wards. So most of society lives in big cities where they're basically penned up in walls. And they kind of just live in denial of this problem, because what are you going to do against a demon? No, you're just going to hide away from it. Behind your wards, behind your walls. So this story picks up in our small country towns, because of course our big cities still need food. They need people in the country out sowing the fields, raising animals. So we pick up with Arlen Bales, who's 11, and he hates this way of life, where at night he is just hiding behind a wooden door that is painted, hoping a demon doesn't break the wards on his house and get into his home, hoping that a demon doesn't break the wards on their paddock so that their animals and their crops don't get burned and eaten. This life of cowardice is not something Arlen wants to live. And very early on in this book, we see Arlen is someone that will take action. He is courageous. If someone is in danger, he wants to help them. And he finds his way out of this small town, which is almost unheard of. And he's able to join the Guild of Messengers, where these are people that brave the night. They hide behind these little ward circles in evenings, just being mailmen, delivering mail and produce all around the world. And he is our visage to be able to see the world, but we also get some other main characters. We also get Leisha, who's not happy with her situation and finds a way to educate herself and learn more about this world. So we get to see the world through someone else's eyes. And then we also get to see the world through the eyes of a traveling bard. So we get lots of different perspectives, and this story just continues to grow. But our main story will always come back to Arlen. He is not content hiding behind wards, and he finds a way to fight back against demons. And what that means is humans can now brave the night a bit more. Humans can travel around a bit more. So all these countries that were being kept separate because people were just staying in their main city, well, now they're going to start moving around a bit. So instead of just humans fighting back against demons, humans are now going to fight humans whilst there's a threat of demons. So by the end of it, we've got a tale of conquering, humans fighting humans, with demons in the background being an ever threat that's growing as they're not liking that humans are fighting back. So demons are fighting back harder. We've got a big world where things just keep getting opened up to higher and higher degrees. And this is a series I just can't recommend enough. Now, some of the common criticisms that the Demon Cycle gets is that it gets a bit too epic and sprawling, that too many POVs get added from book to book. I personally love it. We get POVs from a few different cultures that just makes this story feel so big and so real. And I was just so invested in every character and everyone's lives. I felt like this series was incredible, and I want more people to read it. It's just so epic. It's so dark, and I just want to pick up this book and start reading it again. So now we just have one last series to talk about. And this is one of the first series I ever talked about on this channel. This is by one of my favorite authors. And if you haven't figured it out already, it's the Nevernight Chronicles by Kristoff. This is a revenge story set in a Roman-inspired world where the gods are out of balance. So this world has 3 suns, and it's basically Nevernight. It's night about one day every 3 years. And our main character, Mia, she has some magical abilities revolving around shadows. She's known as a Darken, and she's got some pretty cool abilities. And there may be a talking cat and a talking wolf. That's a possibility. But this story is purely a revenge story. People wronged Mia's family when she was 10, and she was picked up by someone that has given her the ability to learn everything she needs to know to get even with the world. Well, not quite everything, actually. She still has some skills to learn. So in book 1, Nevernight, Mia goes to assassin school, where she learns how to be one of the best assassins in the world, and is able to start getting her revenge. So we get to see her at 16 with the fantasy school tropes turned up to a very edgy degree, where you get teenagers being teenagers, but also teenagers being violent assassins. This was a ton of fun. This is my second favorite book in the series. My favorite book in the series was book 2, God's Grave, where Mia's still out for revenge and she's still leveling up her skills by going into the gladiator arena to be able to get up close with the next person she wants revenge on. But she also ends up having a ton of epic gladiator fights. And this was one of my favorite books I've ever read, just because I really love that gladiator vibe. And the world building just kept growing and kept growing. And the last book, we don't really have a theme like we did in the first 2 books with the school and then with the gladiators. I guess there's a bit of a pirate theme, but really it's just about Mia going all out on her revenge story. I like this book a bit, but I didn't like it as much as the first 2. But overall, J. Kristoff is my favorite writer of all time. His prose in this series is so thick. It's if you think J. Kristoff's writing in Empire of the Vampire is intense, you might not want this one. In Empire of the Vampire, J. Kristoff writes a book that everyone can read. This is not a series that everyone can read. A lot of people will give it the critique that the prose is too purple. I don't agree with that. I think the prose is absolutely what it needs to be to bring his world alive and to immerse you in the story. But I can understand if it's just a bit too flowery for some people. Another thing that Jay's done in this book is he has put in footnotes. So he puts a lot of his world building in just these little stories at the bottom of the page. So if you want to know more about something he references up here, he'll give you more details down there. So that's a really fun element that no other fantasy author has done before, to my knowledge. And this is just a fun, dark revenge story in a Roman-inspired world that is just truly phenomenal. So if you're looking for some dark, gritty fantasy, check out one of these series. Let me know what your favorite dark fantasy series is. If you've read any of these, let me know your thoughts on them. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.